I think what really draws me to audio and music and production, both audio and music, is just the clarity. I think having dialogue or having sound effects or music that comes across as so clear that everyone is able to follow that and get on the same page with the story and how the sound is helping to create that story and tell that story. And that to me is really magic, the magic of audio. And I also think, I believe strongly that one of the great joys of doing audio for film and television is I think it's kind of when it all comes alive. You know, you have the picture, you do the coloring, and everything really goes together ultimately. But I think there's a magic that happens when the sound brings people together and you're sort of submerged in that sound. And I think that's when the story comes alive and it starts to become something else. So an audio engineer, there's lots of different facets to that work. It's about recording sound, it's about working with sound, and as a broadcast audio engineer, it's about fine-tuning audio and preparing audio to be broadcast. So yeah, I studied music for a really long time. I went to the University of Denver, and then I went to film school at the University of Austin, Texas at Austin. And while doing the film program, I got really fascinated with audio and how audio is processed and used in making films and television. And I think some of the music and sound work that I was interested sort of really lend itself to that kind of work. So, having worked in Austin after graduation, I had worked on some bigger projects, you know, feature films, doing editorial, sound editorial. And when I went to Los Angeles, it was kind of a surprise to me that being out there, in some ways you kind of have to start fresh. My skill level was a bit beyond some of the work that I was able to get. And I think my experience in Los Angeles was, you know, you kind of have to start from the ground floor and build that trust with people and those relationships with people and gradually build to where people know the kind of skill set that you have and come back to you. So I think by doing, you know, really good work, trying to do your best, that, you know, people recognize that. And so you build the community of people that you work with and that know you. And I think that's kind of how Los Angeles works, at least my experience. So when you're on set, there's the boom recordist who has the boom mic that might be recording, say, 3 different people. That one mic is capturing all those 3 different people. And then each person is also wearing a lav microphone. So the job of the dialogue editor is to mix those different microphones so that you can't perceive that the sound is changing from one person to another. It's also about cleaning the dialogue. You know, there's a lot of times on set that, you know, maybe a dog is barking or a siren goes by or an airplane, and maybe that was a really great take that everybody loves, but because it's got a plane in it, you might not want to use it. We have the tools to get rid of the airplane or the dog barking and to really make the dialogue shine. So ultimately, you know, the dialogue editor is about making the dialogue clear so that everybody understands it and then it sounds pristine. In Los Angeles, I really specialized in audio editorial. And I did dialogue editorial and sound effects, and I really liked doing those things. I was also wanting to branch out and get into live television audio as well as more field recording. And I was also in Los Angeles kind of for peak television. So there's a lot of production going on, I think, with COVID. And then after the strikes happened, there was a real slowdown with some of the work, and it was a good time for me to make a change. And having lived all over, I was excited to experience a new atmosphere, get out of the city a little bit. One of the things that I've heard a lot, and I think it's true, that an audience will put up with picture being maybe not so great, or off, but they won't do that so much with sound. If the sound is bad, people tend to turn away. So, as an audio engineer, I'll give you a rundown of my day. So today I came in and we did some audio editorial on a television show that we have, that we're working on. And then I stepped over to where we were doing some live taping of some television spots. So we're mixing that live to tape. And then say maybe this afternoon I'll go out into the field and record an interview, which is common. And that's a pretty big day, And at the same time we have multiple mixes in post right now. So always kind of looking for the next, maybe I could do a couple of things on a mix that I'm working on today as well to get that closer to completion, yeah. Well, here at PBS Utah, we have a lot of projects happening. We're currently, the show I'm working on here is for This Is Utah. So we're working on mixing that and editing the sound for that. We also have a 30-minute Arts Elevated that goes over the Governor's Arts Award. We have a documentary that we're working on mixing, and we're going to be mixing the music for that, and we're also field recording for more shows that are coming up. So my goals as an audio engineer going forward are about exploring sound and finding new ways to incorporate sound into storytelling that maybe haven't been done before, or that are done in more unique ways. I think that's one of the great things about audio, is that there's always new things to learn. It's always growing. So you're constantly learning things, and I think there's a lot more that can be done with audio to, really enhance storytelling. And that's, I think, one of my big goals. So my advice to students getting into or wanting to get into film and television production, and especially audio, I think there's a lot of skills to know, there's a lot of technical knowledge, but I think what anyone can do without gear or without the technical knowledge is just to begin to listen. And there's so many opportunities all around us to listen, and I think that is the journey that I've experienced, is to really become aware of the sound world that's around me and how that's being used in production. I think school is a great way to go. Doing film programs, I think, is a really great experience. And also finding maybe mentors or people that that are already working within the industry, and see what they're doing. I've yet to run across many people, especially in audio, that aren't willing to sit down with you and tell you the process of what they're doing. And I think if you show interest and you're really interested, people pick up on that and want to help you get to where you want to go.